Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel Podcast. This is a Pitch a Sequel edition. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man ready to pitch sequels to the Star Wars prequel, is Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
Yippee!
Fuck.
That's not actually a quote. That's just how I feel about coming to the end of this.
Oh, it sounded very Jar Jar.
No, it's the other one. It's the other annoying one from that movie. No, it's not because I dislike talking about the sequels. I have an unlimited appetite for them, as we've discussed.
I'll say.
I'm just grateful to be able to talk about movies for the normal amount of time that we talk about movies.
Me too.
Once again.
Yeah. I'm looking.
As we said before, it's only Star Wars that does.
It's just weird, isn't it? And you seem. I mean, eventually we'll put your theory to the test. You think we won't talk about the sequels as long, and we'll see.
Yeah. We will see. I didn't think that about the prequels either, so we'll see. But
I knew you could talk about. I thought I'd have to shut you down at. Tom, stop.
Well, I guess yeah. The surprise was that you had even more to say than I did on some occasions.
I did.
You were the one who kept saying, "I know." I was like, "We didn't cover this well enough. Let's go back 2 or 3 scenes." That was.
I did that a few times.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think that's because the movies are endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's weird when you watch them for a specific purpose.
Yes, it is. That changes.
When I watch them for this podcast, I think I feel differently about them than I do just sitting down to watch them.
Right, because you have to defend yourself. You have to, counter other people's arguments.
Mm-hmm.
By other people, I mean me. And you already know what those arguments are.
True. All right, well, we're here to pitch sequels, but why don't we do some catch-up first?
Absolutely, yeah. We got a lot of good feedback.
Did we?
About our coverage of the prequels. It all came after the Phantom Menace episode. I don't know if that means that we like the trilogy has fallen off significantly since then, but
does that support my claim that it should be at the top of these, or does it disprove that? Is what I'm wondering.
The lack of comments might, and also the argument of this particular commentator might as well. This is Kyriakos Vilches, who sent us an email saying
not the first time he's written us either, right?
No, he's often written us, and we're really grateful. He's a real cheerleader of our podcast, and we really appreciate that. He writes, "I really enjoyed part 1 of your Phantom Menace episode. I found myself at odds with both of you at times, while also agreeing with some of your points too."
That tracks.
And then it's the laughing emoji face,
Mm-hmm.
which is laughing so much it's crying. Don't know how to translate that into words, but I think you get the idea. This one is actually pretty high on my own ranking list. I actually ranked this one over Attack of the Clones within the prequel trilogy, so sound off on that. Lol. But both of you shared some insights that I found hard to dismiss. I think this is the best case scenario with any response to episodes about the Star Wars prequels. Is that I don't agree with everything you said, but I agree with some of it, and I appreciate the points that you're making. I think that's the best we can do as Star Wars fans in current circumstances.
Yeah, it sounds like we don't have to get lynched.
Right.
And with Star Wars fans, you never know.
Yeah, they're
they're an unruly bunch.
Society is one meal away from anarchy. I think Star Wars fans are many Star Wars fans are one meal away from lynching.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Yeah. So thank you for that. That's it was. I'm glad that we're getting any kind of response at all. You know, I know these are divisive films, so I'm really glad that people can entertain our arguments at the very least about them. The other email we got was from one of our Patreon supporters, Keith Langford.
Now this was lengthy.
Devoted. This was lengthy, and I've edited it a little bit just so to give it some focus. But this is the kind of meat of what Keith wrote. I went into the prequels expecting to see how the Republic fell because that was the backstory hinted at in the Return of the Jedi book. It's in that same novelization where we get the line, which Padme later speaks in Revenge of the Sith, about how democracy dies to thunderous applause. And far be it from author James Caan to just make that part up, because he got it from Lucas himself. Lucas also allowed Terry Brooks to interview him for the novelization of The Phantom Menace, in which we get Lucas's backstory for the Sith. 1,000 years ago, the Sith were numerous, but in their anger and lust for power, they kept fighting one another, which allowed the Jedi to wipe them out. Until, that is, Darth Bane established the rule of two. The rule of two requires that one master and one apprentice should coexist, one to embody the power of the dark side, the other to crave it. Bane's vision was for an apprentice to grow in the Force stronger than his master, kill the master, and train a new apprentice to continue the cycle. As each successive generation of masters grows incrementally more powerful, the final result is the most powerful Sith of all, Palpatine himself. Really is a pyramid scheme.
It is. And a terrible business plan, which we mentioned earlier in previous episodes.
There's more, but any comment on that part of it?
I just I appreciated. Yeah. It's so funny that Keith had written this to us because I can't remember at what point I understood this. I mean, obviously I'd seen the prequels, so at that point you start learning this idea behind the Sith. I don't know. It just we made light of it because it's sounds ridiculous and absurd.
Yeah, and we continue.
It doesn't seem like a good way to try to take over the galaxy, but it worked. So who are we to scoff?
Who are we to scoff? And again, the part that really interests me is about this being talked about in the novelization of Return of the Jedi, and I wonder how much of what I knew was going to happen in Revenge of the Sith comes out of that, like the lava pit, the droids having their mind wiped, and what was the other one that I knew was going to happen? I think that was it, wasn't it?
But yeah, I guess that is it.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I think
that sounds right.
It's kind of interesting, and interesting that line comes from the Return of the Jedi novelization. It's like the most famous. Pretty much the most famous line in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, right.
Apart from maybe I have the high ground. Comes from the novelization, but indirectly through Lucas. It's very interesting. I mean, yeah. Well, I'll go on.
Okay.
Because there is more, and it continues to be to be revelatory. Nevertheless, Palpatine is still only a single Sith, so capturing the galaxy and taking revenge on the Jedi has to be done with subtlety and finesse. The genius of Palpatine is that he engineers a series of crises that persuade the Senate to give him more and more power. The first crisis is the most subtle of all, the blockade of Naboo. I disagree with Tom's assertion about the opening dialogue when he says it doesn't help that they call the trade dispute trivial, because that's the point. Qui-Gon senses an unusual amount of fear here for something as trivial as a trade dispute, because under normal circumstances, it's a dispute that should be easily resolved with a little diplomacy, i.e., the negotiations will be short. But Obi-Wan has a bad feeling because something elusive, a malevolent presence in the shadows, a phantom menace, ? Palpatine, who is manipulating... I love how he just goes straight to a phantom menace, ? Palpatine, who is manipulating, no mystery there, who is manipulating a trivial situation into war so that Valorum is exposed as a chancellor too weak to even resolve a minor matter on an insignificant world. Palpatine hopes to force a vote of no confidence and get himself elected as Chancellor through sympathy because his home world has been invaded. The only wrench in the plan comes when Valorum wisely sends the Jedi to resolve the dispute. Despite this, the Force is with Palpatine because Valorum's Jedi escort Padme, Valorum's Jedi's escort or Jedi, I don't know what the plural of Jedi is supposed to be, escort Padme herself to Coruscant, where the Sith use her to gain even more sympathy. Any thoughts about it? There's more, but thoughts about that?
Yeah, when we get into this portion of the explanation, he's laying out an argument, but to me, it draws out a weakness within the screenplay.
Yeah,
it's that 10-year gap is really hard for me to get over because that's a long con, and it's 10 years of him being in power, and it's hard for me to imagine that these
or thousands of years apparently.
Yeah, these shitty Jedi. They don't want him in power that long, so I can't believe they didn't start trying to murder him even sooner.
Yeah, I think it's quite right to point out that the use of the phrase trivial might be deliberate. But
yeah, that's an interesting point.
Obviously, I made light of it, but I see what he's saying. That's the point, as Keith says. And a lot of this comes down, like my hard and fast rule of, is it on screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to go to a novelization?
Yeah,
or
right.
Do I have to go to another text to find this out? Then it's not in the movie. So, I mean, that's my kind of overall sort of counter argument to any of this, but or at least the first part. But as it goes on, it's kind of an interpretation of what actually happens in the movie, and I think a really valid one.
Agreed.
Going on, once installed as Chancellor, Palpatine still can't just take over and dominate the galaxy, so he causes a new crisis, a civil war. Rather than this showing him to be a weak Chancellor like Valorum, he makes the case he's hamstrung by politics, thus prompting the Senate to give him emergency war powers, including all the powers he needs to rule as Emperor. But the Jedi are still in the way. How can he get rid of them? Well, the war does a lot of work for him because many Jedi die fighting it, just as many do in a single battle on Geonosis. And embedded with the military, they become easy targets to kill all at once with Order 66. Yet to make a Jedi purge politically possible and sufficiently permanent, Palpatine needs two things. The Jedi to become the enemies of peace, and a turncoat from within the Jedi ranks to invade the temple, killing those not on the front lines. Palpatine's masterstroke is the final crisis, the assassination attempt on his life, because it justifies the purge and turns Anakin to the dark side so he can murder babies. Which is exactly
all of that
what
happens.
Yeah, and I agree that the masterstroke is the assassination attempt on his life.
Yeah.
Also, because he's exploiting something that really happened. Mace Windu was really going to take over the government.
Yeah, true. It lends to your argument that Palpatine is the hero of these three movies.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is, I think if Keith hasn't already sent his work to the people who write the Star Wars Expanded Universe, he absolutely should, because he's making a better job of telling this story than even George Lucas.
And that's the other thing is, when I first read his email, I thought, okay, well, he's putting it so succinctly, and it's not as though I didn't understand all the things that he's saying happened, that they happened, but the sporadic nature of it over the course of three movies, it makes the story in the prequels, it's a bigger arc because it goes over three movies. And he's saying it in a way in which it seems like it should be in one movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I see. Yeah, it's. Well, this is the final point, and I have something to say about this, which speaks to that. Yes, they have many, many flaws, but imperfect as they are, I've come to appreciate Lucas's three-movie vision, a story that's unified, whole, and complete from start to finish. It's a tragedy of how the downward spiral of politics and personal trauma can lead to tyranny and despair, but there is yet hope for a new generation to bring restoration and redemption. I agree that in comparison to the sequel trilogy and all the kind of Disney-era Star Wars, related Star Wars, yes, this is far more unified, whole, and complete than any of that.
Sure.
In relative terms. And you know, if you want to again, and we talked about this a little bit in the Revenge of the Sith episode, if you want to follow the through line of what happens in the Senate, I would agree that this is that is a 3-movie vision. It's a unified story. It's whole and complete. Everything around that, I think, is a little more hit and miss and a little more fragmented.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that about the entirety of the prequel films, but this...
I think the prequel films feel more fragmented than he is summarizing.
Yeah, but in terms of the story of the downward spiral of politics...
Yeah, no, yeah.
I think that is... He's kind of like cut out the fat, and this is the...
Absolutely.
This is the meat of the story.
Of the 3 movies put
perhaps
together.
Even Lucas didn't realize that that is the most coherent and consistent way of tracking a story through these 3 movies. So yeah, you know, don't completely agree with everything, but I think not only is it all valid, but I definitely agree with a lot of it to some extent, and certainly in comparison to what's been done with Star Wars since, this looks far more coherent, organized, and unified than any of that.
Agreed.
Yeah, and the detail and the effort and is much appreciated. Keith that later sent a message to our Patreon apologizing for the length of the email.
Yeah, no,
to which
no
I
need.
I replied, never apologize for length.
That's your creed.
And again,
your
you know,
motto.
my only fight against that is it in the movie? And I think some of it is, and some of it has to be extrapolated from other Star Wars media, and that's the point at which I kind of, you know, I tap out.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that's we talked about this on a Clone Wars watch along as well. Like, that's an unrealistic way to be watching Star Wars now. You cannot expect to watch one TV show or one movie and not have to watch a related set of texts in order to understand them. That's just not what they're doing now. I mean, you know, every review of Ahsoka begins with, "Oh, it complements Star Wars Rebels perfectly." I'm like, so how am I going to feel about it having never seen any of Rebels?
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. That is all you need to be reviewing here.
Agreed.
But that's not how modern franchises work, and it's certainly not how the Star Wars.
It's we're in a different era, I guess, of storytelling, aren't we? It's weird.
It is, yeah.
Because that used to be the bedrock of telling a story. If somebody doesn't have to watch something else to understand what they're watching now.
Superman 2.
Yeah.
You know, we'll replay the first movie for you in the first 10 minutes of our film. And, you know, we got it. Yeah. Which is going from one extreme to another, but definitely in continuing franchises, it's rare for you to be able to kind of track a story from start to finish without having to rely on external information from somewhere else. And I'm talking like specifically about other texts within that franchise. I'm not talking about cultural capital. Like references to pop culture or things like that, which, you know, different media plays on different levels with that, as they should, because it's supposed to be a shared knowledge, right? But there's an assumption of a lot of shared knowledge that I don't care to accumulate before I watch the thing that I want to watch.
Well, thank you, I say to our listeners, for taking the time to write in.
Yeah,
it's greatly appreciated.
It was great to read, and thank you for participating.
All right, friend. Should we pitch?
Okay. Yeah, we've got a pitch.
We have a mandate.
Well, yeah, and implied in our mandate is that we make a Star Wars film that's somehow linked to the prequels.
Has there been a more difficult task set upon us, because you have 3 movies that we already know that come after this, and so what do you do? Where do you start?
Mm-hmm.
What's the germination of an idea? I mean, how hard was it for you?
Yeah, why would you make more
exactly.
of them?
Like, why?
So I turned away from the normal process of what we do here, and trying to find the natural next step in the story,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we tend to do. And by natural, I mean completely artificial. That only makes sense to us. I just decided to sort of go with a completely different idea, and
That's what you always do.
Make. But this one specific, like it occurred to me halfway through thinking about this that the answer is staring me in the face,
Mm-hmm.
and I should just run with that, even though it isn't kind of conventionally what we do when we pitch sequels.
Mm.
What about you?
I didn't attack this with a lot of relish. I just kept
No?
well.
Did you attack it with clones?
Yeah, I just I kept thinking, what can I possibly do?
Yeah.
And my sequel brain always kind of works towards to me, I always think about that logical next step. That's what
Yeah.
and to me,
You got a bit more freedom with these films, though, because there's huge time jumps in between the films.
I guess,
during the
yeah.
films.
So that was something I considered, was the amount of time. And then to me, the big question is intersequel or not, and I couldn't think of a not. So
in interquel.
or interquel, yeah.
Yeah. Or intersequel.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't scoffing at your word. It's as good a word as interquel, right? If not better. It's just not the term I'm
It's
used
not
to
what
hearing.
it's not what we originally came up with. I think you came up with interquel.
Yeah. Oh no, that's an existing term.
Is it?
Don't credit me for that.
All right.
Yeah. People have conversations about film outside of this podcast, Mike.
But not
And occasionally
but
I
not
steal
like
from them.
us. Not like us.
And by occasionally, I mean always. No, interquel is an established term for a movie that sits between movies. Space between spaces.
That's where I went, friend.
Okay. I've kind of done... I've done a different kind of an interquel.
I'm sure you have.
Maybe an interquel between... well, yes. I'm not using different as a euphemism as you are using it. For bad and weird. But mine is an interquel between trilogies. It's quite a good teaser, isn't
Ooh, I like that. Well, I want you to go first.
it? I bet you do. No, happy to. So, as I said, I had a epiphany in this in thinking up this sequel, where I suddenly realized what it should be, because I've spent most of the episodes talking about the prequels bemoaning the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV show, didn't give us a Rockford Files / The Fugitive TV series that was Obi-Wan going around Tatooine solving mysteries and getting people out of jams.
Yes.
And, it was said before that this was decided, it's a no-brainer that's what that show should have been.
Right.
But we didn't get it. We got something very different. And so I decided I would use this platform to create that piece of media.
I like it.
And so my sequel is a feature-length TV pilot episode of an Obi-Wan TV series.
The Obi-Wan
that
Files?
would be called Obi-Wan. Just called Obi-Wan.
Okay.
I sort of ummed and ahed between that and Kenobi, but I thought, for some reason, even though Kenobi sounds a lot like Kojak, I still didn't think it quite worked, so I went with Obi-Wan. But anyway, this is the TV movie pilot, which is an established tradition. Cagney and Lacey had one. The Rockford Files had one. Kojak had one. In fact, the Marcus Nelson murder.
Hunter had
Very
one.
popular in the set. Yes. You always find that, like, that extra deep cut when it comes to television. I love it. Like, I'm throwing out all the names that people know. Hunter. Give me a break. Herman's Head. Where was I? Yeah, so the name of my movie / episode is Obi-Wan : Battle for Tatooine. So I'm also drawing inspiration from the Ewoks TV movies.
Clearly.
Yeah, in how I'm titling them, and perhaps what they're about. So we pick up where Revenge of the Sith ends, with Obi-Wan riding away on his OP. The OP is so gassy that Obi-Wan has to kind of pull over just to get a breath of fresh desert air as he travels the is it the Jungen Wastes? Jungen Wastes?
You would know far better than me. Come on, I don't remember the names.
I'm going to say the Young and Wastes. I'm trying to remember what Alec Guinness says. The Young and Wastes are not travel, whatever it is. Anyway, doesn't matter. Not this. While he's resting, trying to get some time away from the OP, trying to stay as upwind as possible of the OP, he sees that there's a kind of wagon train going through the Young and Wastes, containing a family with a pregnant woman, and they're being surrounded, cowboys and Indian style, by the Tusken Raiders. They're ready to take them down, and Obi-Wan immediately, not thinking, reaches for his lightsaber, realizes this is going to expose him and his expose his position, and that he's got to be keeping a low profile. So instead of he tries to think of another way to get them to leave, and that's where he comes up with the idea of imitating the Krayt Dragon that we see at the beginning of Star Wars, and that scares away the Tusken Raiders. That's how he got the idea to do that.
Now, weren't you complaining about connecting things?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's very much an Indiana Phoenix situation, to quote Alex Robinson. And then Obi-Wan goes over to make sure that this wagon train with these settlers these desert settlers are okay. He sees that the woman's pregnant. He learns that they are they're from a settlement of separatists who took refuge in the desert of Tatooine, and they're fleeing the planet because of the deal that Jabba struck with the Republic at the beginning of Clone Wars. Just to bring in one of our watch-alongs for passage through the space lanes.
There you go.
And now that the Republic has become the Empire, Tatooine is the first colony. So the troops are moving in, setting up outposts, and the Separatists realize they have to get out or they're going to get exterminated.
Sure.
And, in the dialogue it's covered that, they rallied around Dooku, but they didn't really sort of believe in him. They sort of, they just thought democracy was disappearing and felt like the Republic was backsliding into fascism, with good reason. And Obi-Wan, he wants to keep a low profile. He wants to leave them, but he can see that they're not going to make it to the spaceport that they're going to, and so he agrees to help them on their way and help arrange travel when they get there. They're basically like they're kind of Amish. They're sort of space Amish. They're like they're green. They wouldn't know how to handle life in the big city, so Obi-Wan feels like he has to help them get transport off the planet. And of course, near a spaceport, Mos Eisley.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Obi-Wan's first encounter with Mos Eisley. He goes into the cantina where he hears that that pilots are looking for passengers, and that's where he first meets Boshak, who is the guy the pilot that introduces him to Chewbacca in Star Wars. And he sort of says that these people need transport. Boshak's like, well, I can get them out, but what's it worth? And he's like, and Obi-Wan says, well, I'm a Jedi. I have no means. We don't have attachments. We don't have possessions. Then Boshak sees his lightsaber. And
that's worth something.
Says, he said, you can give me that kyber crystal in that lightsaber, because since Order 66, the kyber crystal that makes the lightsaber is now the rarest jewel in the galaxy. Because they've all been, because all the Jedi are supposedly extinct, as far as we know at this point, as it will be in my version. And so, Boshak's like, yeah, it's like, you keep bringing me these kyber crystals, I'll keep getting these people off world. So of course, Obi-Wan, good-natured Obi-Wan, he gets these separatists off the planet. Then he goes to their settlement. They've already been invaded by stormtroopers. The people have told him that much like the Gungans, they have a sacred place that they go to when there's trouble happening, and that's a callback, and they're like, oh, I used to know a lizard in a waistcoat who did the same. And so they're hiding in caves that the stormtroopers don't know about, in like a little City of Alexandria kind of arrangement, Last Crusade arrangement.
Yeah, right.
City built into the rocks. That, by the way, is where Obi-Wan is living when we see him in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's how we find out about them. So anyway, basically what happens is that Obi-Wan starts becoming an underground railroad for anyone trying to get out of the clutches of the Empire, as Tatooine is. As the Empire takes control of Tatooine and turns it into a colony. So he's kind of running refugees into Mos Eisley. So it's him and Boshak trying to get people out before while the stormtroopers are chasing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure this could be a good 75-minute, 90-minute pilot. A few 2 or 3 of sets of people that he's running through this sort of underground railroad, and once it's all over, he withdraws to his new cave, which he's found through his work with the Underground Railroad.
Right.
But it's given him at least in this period, it's given him a kind of new lease of life. That he realizes that he can still be of service and help people, even if he can't be a Jedi, and he's gonna act out that instinct over about 3 seasons, 3.5 seasons, something like that. Of television. Each episodic, no continuing stories. Like television should be.
Well,
there you go. Obi-Wan, Battle for Tatooine.
Obi-Wan, Battle for Tatooine. We're
tonight on ABC.
we're in a similar area.
Really? Oh no. You're not. After all this, after all we've complained about going back to Tatooine, if both of our pitches are on Tatooine,
so here's the
I feel
thing.
like we have to make a retraction.
And this would be a complaint for your idea too, I think. I was gonna set mine on Tatooine, but with I'll ask you this question: with everything going on with Obi-Wan, stormtroopers are involved, blah 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 blah. Doesn't that get back to the Empire, to Vader? Isn't he gonna come?
No, it's like The Fugitive. They never catch up with him. They get within, at the end of every episode of The Fugitive, they were minutes away from getting him, but he'd already fled the scene.
Okay.
So they'll be
but there's nobody on a comm saying, "Hey, I think we've got that Jedi you've been looking for."
No, because it'll be like, we won't know if it's the paranoia of one Imperial officer who's been hunting him, and he doesn't want to report it to Vader until he knows that he's right and that he's been captured. So that's why it never gets back to them.
So I guess in my original idea,
It'd be as, he'd get choked to death if he said, I had Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he got away.
Mm-hmm. In my original idea, I had it on Tatooine.
Okay.
I also had cover for it.
Did you change it while I was talking?
No. I was thinking of changing it beforehand. I was thinking of changing it that my story, because it will end up involving Vader directly, it leads Vader too directly to Tatooine. But I think maybe I could fix that by getting him off planet and Vader never knowing.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's troublesome to say the least.
That's my sticking point. I don't ever want he shouldn't leave the planet in those 20 years. That's my sticking point with Obi-Wan. I got no sense that he ever left Tatooine.
I know. That's my problem in writing this story.
It's not your problem. It's the franchise's problem.
That's
that we've
true.
inherited.
All right. Well, let's get down to it then.
Sure.
I am calling my sequel Pursuit of the Jedi.
Ooh. Wow. That's you really turned the tables on the titles there.
You like that?
Yeah, mine sounds like one of your titles, and that's actually quite good.
So, I am going with your idea. It's Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that both the Emperor and Vader have their sights set on finding these two. Because if they get rid of them both, then their path to taking over the galaxy is clear. And I've got a bit of a time jump of 5 years since the end of Sith.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I got ideas for like the whole front scene. You take a ship. What's the name of that ship? You would know better than me. The first ship we see in Star Wars.
The Tantive 4.
Okay. So think about a ship maybe 2 or 3 times the size of that.
What a lukewarm response. You like it less now that you know it's called that.
I do. But I imagine seeing a ship that we think of as big and kind of doing the same thing we do with the first Imperial ship, where you're kind of going, I would instead of going under, I would be over it.
Okay.
And then the camera gets to the back jets and kind of comes underneath, and you're just seeing the underneath of the ship, and then you pull down. And above it, you see the huge Imperial ship that you didn't know that was there, that is sucking this thing up with a tractor beam.
Oh, wow.
And cut to...
Poor ship.
What's that?
Poor ship. It was getting sucked up in some kind of a tractor beam.
It is. You think we're going to get some good guys, and it turns out, of course, as always, the good guys are in trouble.
Yeah.
And you're going to get Vader kind of interrogating a guy in a chair, and he's just going to say, "Where are they?" And he responds, "So you're Lord Vader, the traitor." And then he says, "Who is this?" And all of a sudden you see a hand come up and start force choking this guy. And it's Vader that says, "Release him." So in the span of this 5 years, the Emperor has given Vader an apprentice to train.
So you're also influenced by Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'm fucking around with shit in the sense of the two. I think the Emperor sees himself on another level, and now he has created a master, and now this new Darth can, if he's going to kill anybody, he can kill Vader.
He's the assistant to the regional manager.
Exactly right. I'm calling him Darth Typhon.
And the pendulum of titles has swung once again.
That was all I could come up with.
Darth Typhon sounds like a kind of a sort of a brand of tea.
Well, it's like a play on typhoon.
Yeah, I get that. It's not making it any better. That just sounds. Oh, it also sounds like Darth hyphen. Like there's
I
something
also
missing.
until about
It's like Dark hyphen something.
it's until about 10 minutes before we were going to start recording today, I thought, fuck, I don't have a name for that fucking guy. So I just wrote it down.
Darth Marth.
Darth Math?
Darth Marth.
Marth?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Of course it's terrible.
At any rate, what we're going to get is what has sprung up in the last 5 years are lots of small bands of rebellions, but that they're not organized.
Yeah.
And so Vader's just going to find out that this guy has no idea even really who Yoda and Obi-Wan are, and he's just going to force choke him and kill him. And he's going to be talking to the Emperor, who's going to tell him, keep looking. This is the only thing that's stopping us from being able to rule the galaxy. You can tell me what you think of this name, because we're going to get... when we cut, we're going to cut straight to Obi-Wan, and he's in the middle of training Rennick Zet.
Mm-hmm. Training a what?
Rennick Zet.
That's. Did you create that with the Star Wars name generator?
Yeah, one of those.
Did you?
Yeah.
How did I know that? Because that sounded real.
Yeah.
Rennick Zet?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great.
So what it's going to be is the idea behind all of this is...
If you want to stop and pitch this directly to Dave Filoni, I think you got a chance.
Well, the idea for me was the idea of Obi-Wan trying to correct the mistakes of his past.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in the middle of training, and we're even going to get like a callback to Empire, because when they're done, I kind of had the idea of one of the orbs with, Rennick with the face shield and the blasters and the little rays shooting out, but then also Obi-Wan coming up with a lightsaber and him battling him with the helmet on.
Yeah.
To see how far he's come. And once they're done, you're going to kind of he's going to get that force sense of, oh, I feel cold. Now, the reason I was going to put this on Tatooine was because it's one of those caves. It's the same kind of cave as Dagobah.
It's that crossed my mind to make the caves one of those special force caves.
A force cave, exactly. And because in doing a little bit of research, from what I understand, that's why the Empire could never find Yoda, was because the force cave is essentially part of the dark side. And if you're going to become a Jedi, you have to face that to kind of move on. I don't know if it's I couldn't find out if it's officially part of the trials, though.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's essentially part of the dark side of the Force, they can't sense or feel Yoda there. And that's why I wanted to set it on Tatooine, because then I figured it's kind of cover for Obi-Wan being there and never being detected.
Yeah.
That's
true.
But then I thought, like, what if, kind of a la Empire Strikes Back, we're sending out the kind of satellite droids. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my idea was, if they send one and they only see Rennick in town, he's kidnapped, he's taken off. Now Obi-Wan, it's kind of like combining your idea. Obi-Wan, is on the case. He's got to get him back.
Yeah. Does that? So, anyway, carry on. You've got more.
No, go ahead. You have a question?
It's more of a. You're gonna have to tell me how it pans out. Otherwise, the question is moot.
Well, what I was trying to get to was that idea of an Imperial ship that Obi-Wan has to find a way onto. I have this idea that maybe he's got
spider
I don't
legs?
know what. Yeah. Well, I think it's like an emergency call. I hit a button, Yoda gets a signal. That means
how did I miss that?
I need you.
That's pure 1960s television. How did I miss that?
And I got to be honest, I hadn't worked enough out in my head to know too much in the second act. I guess the idea that I came up with, really, the whole crux of it starts working towards Obi-Wan's got an idea. He thinks he can maybe destroy the Sith now. And the idea would be that
it's just two guys, so yeah.
It's well, now it's three though.
2.5 from the sounds of this guy.
But we got 2.5 on our side.
True, yeah, that's right.
I guess what I wanted to get was
balance to the. Anakin really did bring balance to the Force.
Yeah, what I liked was the idea that anything that happens in this story, Vader never sees Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan thought that he was bringing them together for him to finally, to finish Vader off. And it turns out Vader outthought him. And Vader, he was willing to sacrifice his pawn because now he can't kill him. The pawn can't kill Vader.
Yeah.
And he can kill Obi-Wan's apprentice.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask about.
So
because
that's where this
get
ends.
Him out of the way.
Right.
Before anything else happens.
I guess the idea for me was it leads into the Obi-Wan series of why he backed away, dropped his Force powers, and did what he did.
Oh yeah,
that's it. I have to stop. I can't keep fighting in this way. I can't train a Jedi. I have to stop. I'm done.
I like that Obi-Wan is learning that now, rather than after Revenge of the Sith.
I know.
It's really more of at this point, it's really more of a reminder that he's incapable of doing these things.
Yeah, right.
He's like, oh yeah, I totally suck at training Jedis. The last one I trained became the most evil person in the galaxy.
And this one gets killed. I sent him to his death.
Yeah. I mean, that's great.
Escaping by the skin of their teeth, he goes back to Tatooine. Yoda goes back to Dagobah. And the Emperor has to concede that these two are going to go away and not come back until they choose to. And we're going to have to wait until then. So we've got the Death Star. We're good. Let's move on.
That's what delayed the construction of the Death Star. They were
always searching for Jedi.
Let's take a sabbatical from the Death Star and go off and see if we can find Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
It's pretty much built. We can we're ahead of schedule. That's why in Return of the Jedi Vader's so antsy about getting the Death Star back on schedule. It's like, last time we said we were ahead of schedule, didn't go so well. Took us another 15 years.
Pursuit of the Jedi.
Great. I like Pursuit. That's a very noirish title. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good salvaging of an interquel.
All right.
Yeah.
I need a new Darth name. Listeners, if you're listening, send in your Darth names.
I don't see what's wrong with Darth Marth. I mean, Ralph Malph got away with it.
Yeah, I was gonna. No, you can't have one that rhymes. What's the matter with you?
It worked. Happy Days was on TV for a long time.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Well,
you're talking about the redheaded character.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Donnie Most. Is that the name?
Yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
He does cabaret in San Diego from time to time. Anyway, that's.
Right. Sidebar.
This is how you know you've talked too much, when you're discussing what Donnie Most is doing in your local area
right now. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 2 sequels for you to vote on. What was yours called again?
I knew
Obi-Wan.
you were gonna do that. I knew you had retained it.
Obi-Wan what?
Obi-Wan Battle for Tatooine,
Battle for Tatooine. Very good then.
and yours is Star Wars Pursuit of the Jedi.
Just Pursuit of the Jedi.
Yeah, well, you really don't like putting Star Wars up for Star Wars
No.
prefixes. What is it? Why do you? Do you not want people to know it's a Star Wars movie?
I think Jedi in the title is enough to tell people it's a Star Wars movie.
But people think it's a video game.
It rubs against me in the worst way. It's like
It really does. I've noticed that.
I equate it to changing Raiders of the Lost Ark to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Don't like it. The title of that movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay. 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 All right. I sort of understand, but it's really more of a sort of marquee banner than a prefix.
Yeah, I'm still fine with you. But Star Wars in yellow, receding into the stars. That's all I need. I don't need it in my title.
Understood.
I don't want to see Star Wars Episode 3.5, The
Yeah.
Pursuit of the Jedi.
That's where it gets tricky, I think. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you quantify it?
Yeah, I don't want that in my life.
3.6.5.
It's just Pursuit of the Jedi, my friend.
Pursuit of the Jedi. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remember that when I put the polls up online. You definitely want the Star Wars prefix, right? That's what I'm getting.
No, come on now.
Okay. You want it as a suffix, so like Pursuit
Obi-Wan,
of the
the
Jedi,
battle for
Star
Tatooine.
Wars.
I got it. I'll remember.
Hey, you proud of me for not putting numbers in where they don't
I
belong?
am. And none of them are reversed or in weird orders or taking over for letters.
On a related note, are you looking forward to Expendables?
That's right. Oh, good times.
With a trailer that doesn't want you to know it's an Expendables movie.
Yeah, I got to tell you. I'm not hearing good things.
That's probably the best plot twist in a movie I've seen for decades. Has been in the Expendables trailer.
Oh, yeah?
When it reveals halfway through that it's an Expendables movie. And not a remake of Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Jason Statham and...
Yeah, that's right. It
woman-
does start
the
off
woman
like that,
from,
doesn't it?
What's her name? Megan Fox?
Megan Fox.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Well, there you have it. Those are our pitches, and that's the Star Wars prequels done.
Yep.
And now we got to move on, Tom.
Until next year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually
some
not been
point.
a whole year. It's not been a whole year since we did the original, so
That's true.
I'd say in the next 6 months to a year, look out for more Star Wars episodes.
Tom's favorite. 2 of those movies are directed by J.J. Abrams.
They are.
If we
we'll see
survive
how-
it, the podcast
see-
will go on.
We'll see how I feel very differently about each of those movies, even though they are directed by the same person. So that's a little
All
bit of
right.
a teaser.
I look forward to it, friend.
I bet you do.
In the meantime, people can vote on what they think of our sequels that we just pitched. And you're going to have to tell us what sequel you would pitch. So find us on Facebook, Instagram, and that's it. Or send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com.
What late
Tom-
70s style TV movie pilot would you pitch?
Yeah, exactly. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi is living on a vast estate. Kind of looks like Hawaii.
There's a a surf version of the Star Wars theme of John Williams' Star Wars guy.
Yeah. All right, everyone.
Hawaii 5 Obi-Wan.
Oh, God. Thank you for listening. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Roger, Roger. It's been low-hanging fruit this entire time.
It really has been. I'm glad you snuck it in under the wire.
Literally under the wire. They're battle droids.
Yeah.
They're full of wires.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're excited about our next series, so stay tuned for that. We're close to Halloween. That's a clue.
But it won't be Halloween. So we've been doing it for the past 2 years.
We're done with that shit.
Until we do a Patreon episode.
All right,
Or
so long.
They make more Halloween movies. Or we have to do the Rob Zombie sequel.
Stop talking.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beers. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.